All right, so our animation's pretty messed up right now. That's the next thing to focus on. We have this little weird alien rock right there. He's kind of just floating around doing I don't know what he's doing. But we need to get rid of that pop force that's causing the swirly noise thing to happen. Also, the timing of the activation isn't correct. And we also have these plates moving on frame 1, and I'd like to push that back by about maybe 25 frames so that we have some time at the very beginning where nothing's happening. So let's do all that. First things first, at frame 1, we have everything moving. So if we want to push that back a few frames, we just need to do a time shift. And we can set that up before we hit the transform pieces. We'll say $F minus 25, and that will give us some more time before that all becomes active. Now, once we do that, we go up to our wrangle here. Well, actually, let's see. We go to our transform pieces. It's moving right there. I think it's best to do this wrangle stuff where we activate via the area attribute after the transform pieces. So let's wiggle that out. Give ourselves some room. Just kind of scoot all that upwards. And then we will situate these guys here like so. Trying to keep myself somewhat organized here. Let's get rid of all that. We don't need it. Okay, so now we have pieces moving like that. And I want to visualize when this is all happening. So I could just take, this is actually a better way of perhaps previewing it. We take an attribute promote, take CD from point to primitive. Again, on this, we are changing the CD if it activates. And then we set the visualize. So now we can see when that's happening. And let's actually go ahead and just, where's our camera? There's our camera. Okay, so we want to take these keyframes, push them back, so they start right around there. So this is when the plates move. That's when they're fully active. I'll kind of push this back a little bit too so that we have more time for this to expand even further. Okay, cool. I like that. Much better. Okay, so we have that now. That is looking pretty good. Just to keep ourselves organized somewhat, we'll do that. There we go. And now let's go fix that pop force issue. So the pop force issue is basically something that you could get really fancy with, but I don't want to spend too much time on it. The main thing I was trying to show you is that you can use pop forces with this group, and it's really awesome. So let's figure out when everything's moving and then just keyframe the pop force down from there. So everything starts around frame 24, goes till about frame 54. So I'm going to remember that. Go to manual as we keyframe this. Let's say that we start at 10, around 30, and then around 47, we go all the way down to 0. Simple as that. That ought to take care of our issues. We could go more sophisticated by saying use the vexpressions, and we can say force until velocity is reached. So we can turn this off if, let's say, it reaches a speed of 1. So that's pretty good. We'll just leave that alone. I just kind of did that preset right there. That ought to be fine. And to double check this, let's set this to auto updates and go forward a few frames. So now the pop force, it's working towards the beginning. That's good because it takes those tertiary pieces and it tries to push them out a little bit, but it's not going crazy with the whole alien looking rock effect that we had before. Now, looking at this, I am going to make an educated guess and say that we don't have enough depth on these plates. So if we look at it from, let's say, down here, there's a possibility that once these in-between areas fall through, that we are going to see the bottom of these plates, and I don't want that. So I'm going to bring them down, and I'll do it right now because that means going all the way back up here and changing something, which is always a risky move. but that's okay. This isn't really that risky. All I want to do is take that extruded volume. Instead of -1, I'll say -1.5, just to give ourselves a bit more space. I'll go ahead and pause the video as I go back through the network, but I just wanted to do this because it's going to help us out a little bit. The main thing here is just don't forget to set your grid that we animated down a little bit so that we have room for all that. So again, template this, we'll just set this downwards a tad bit more, specifically by about 0.5. So we'll say, take our translates, and we'll just take this down a little bit. It's about 2.3, 2.4 or so. So now we end up with that. That's better. Resim that. Hopefully that doesn't change our results too drastically. It might, but we'll see. So yeah, from here, it makes sense to maybe play around with some different seeds on that mountain sop again. We do end up having a different animation. So I'm going to pause the video, take some time, make sure that your resolution is low as you do this, because you don't want to be waiting around forever for these things to cache. But, you know, just continue cleaning this up. It's good to clean up as you go, because this will cause the next stage in this process to go much more smoothly. And after a few tweaks, I end up with this. Your results obviously will look different than mine, but this is generally where we want to be. And there's one more thing I'd like to do before moving on. That is showing you what it looks like when we turn down the speed of this entire simulation. So right now, this doesn't feel like a very large scene because everything's moving really quickly. Watch what happens when I take a time shift, or a time warp, actually. Time warp, and I set that before the transform pieces right here. So after we've cached it out, time warp, interpolate in between the frames, let's say 1 to 300 by speed. And then before things start moving, I'm going to keyframe 1. Once they start moving, 0.5. Last but not least, we need to use name as the point ID attributes. And now that we do this, we can see that that's working properly, and I'll show you a side-by-side comparison. Here at the top, I have the fast version, and the bottom is the slowed down version. And again, by slowing this down, it makes the whole scene feel bigger. This is one of the best things you can do to make a scene feel bigger than what it is by default. So, slowing that down, great idea. We'll do the same thing for the in-between pieces eventually as well. Speaking of the in-between pieces, we'll now move on to that, and we'll start in the next video.